Welcome back, everyone. Today's topic is a very interesting one. You may have heard of intermittent fasting as a growing health trend lately. It's a kind of eating pattern that breaks the traditional mold of 3 square meals a day, and it does show a variety of health benefits we'll discuss today. It's a relatively safe and easy way for each of us to contribute to our long-term health. Just a quick disclaimer first. These videos are to be taken as general health education and are not a direct recommendation. As we'll soon discuss, intermittent fasting may or may not be right for you depending on your particular situation. So always defer to the advice of your attending healthcare provider before pursuing any health intervention. Alright, so let's get into it. First of all, intermittent fasting is not really a diet plan. It does not specify exactly which kinds of foods to eat, but when you should eat them. Although of course a well-balanced fruit and vegetable-dominated diet with minimal junk and processed food is generally a good idea. Rather, intermittent fasting is better described as an eating pattern having to do with cycling periods for eating and for fasting. Humans have practiced fasting throughout history, for health reasons, for religious reasons, or even just out of necessity. Our most ancient hunter-gatherer ancestors didn't have supermarkets or refrigerators. There were periods where they may have gone days without food just because of variable hunting success, or a poor growing season, or a lack of preservation techniques. They were also not sedentary. They spent much of their energy between meals working and striving to secure their next meal in an ecological niche where food was sparsely distributed. As a result of these pressures on our ancient ancestors, humans evolved to cope with periods of fasting. You might even say that taking a break from eating and digesting once in a while is actually more natural to us than our modern convention of regular meals throughout the day, each within just a few hours of the last one, often with snacking on top of that. Normally, after eating a meal, calories from that meal are immediately available for metabolic use by the body. Anything extra that the body does not immediately need is stored as fatty acids in the visceral and subcutaneous adipose tissue, or as a form of starch called glycogen stored in the liver. Between meals, with no additional food to draw upon, it is the glycogen, a carbohydrate, that is favored to supply the body with glucose for energy. It takes about 10 to 14 hours of not eating for that glycogen to be depleted. And it is only after this amount of time that the body begins to resort to mobilizing fatty acids from storage in the adipose tissue. The liver converts these fatty acids into ketones, which supply the body and brain with energy instead of glucose. This is the true fasting state. It is worth noting that those who consume a typical Western dietary pattern of some 3 meals per day will rarely, if ever, reach this fasting state. Periods of intermittent fasting are experienced by the body as a form of stress from deprivation, and this activates biochemical mechanisms in our bodies that increase cellular stress resistance and defense, as well as activate cellular repair and maintenance processes. Returning to the fed state after a period of fasting then promotes new cellular replication and growth. And so, rather than staying perpetually in the fed state by eating multiple times per day, regularly switching back and forth from fed to fasting tends to promote long-term maintenance of a variety of organ systems and resistance to disease. So there are a few ways to adopt intermittent fasting, all of them involving splitting the day or the week into periods designated for eating or for fasting. During fasting periods, you consume either very little or nothing at all, other than sufficient fluids and electrolytes. There is the 5-2 approach, where you consume no more than 500 to 600 calories on 2 non-consecutive days of the week. There is the eat-stop-eat method, where you fast for a full 24 hours, once or twice per week, for instance by fasting from dinner time on one day until dinner time the next day. And then there is the 16-8 method, which seems to be the most popular, as it tends to be the simplest and easiest to incorporate into one's lifestyle. This protocol involves a daily eating window of 6 to 8 hours, followed by a fasting period of 16 to 18 hours each day. You would do this, for instance, by skipping breakfast and consuming your daily nutrients and calories during that 8-hour window from, say, 12 p.m. until 8 p.m., and then fasting for the remaining 16 hours of that 24-hour period. And nothing, not even small snacks, may be consumed during the fasting period, other than proper hydration. So what are the benefits of doing this? One of the immediate benefits you may notice by adopting intermittent fasting is that it will tend to simplify your life. You won't have to plan or clean up after as many meals as before. You may find your monthly food bill to be quite a bit lighter as well. And as you might expect, caloric restriction in this way often leads to healthy weight loss, which is the most common reason why people might adopt this eating pattern. This weight loss strategy can work so long as you are not overeating during your eating periods. But usually that is not a problem. While you may feel a bit hungry during the fasting period, at least at first, you will still feel satisfied by eating normal portions during your eating period. Beyond weight loss, there are many peripheral health benefits to intermittent fasting. 2 recent studies showed that a caloric restriction regimen consisting of 24-hour fasting periods 3 times per week reversed insulin resistance in patients with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. Human studies have shown that intermittent fasting can improve markers of cardiovascular risk, including high blood pressure, resting heart rate, levels of HDL and LDL cholesterol, triglycerides, glucose, and insulin levels, and insulin resistance. Additionally, markers of systemic inflammation and oxidative stress associated with atherosclerosis were also reduced by intermittent fasting. Fasting stimulates cellular repair processes, including a process known as autophagy, where old and dysfunctional cells are broken down and resorbed to be replaced by newer, healthier cells. And this has implications for the long-term health and function of disease resistance of our tissues. There is strong preclinical evidence seen in animal models that intermittent fasting can both delay and slow the progression of such neurological diseases as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. These animal studies also show enhanced cognition of multiple domains such as spatial memory, associative memory, and working memory. These results are especially compelling given the relative lack of alternative pharmacological treatments for these disorders. Beyond strictly neurological robustness and reduction of chronic inflammation, intermittent fasting also promotes the expression of genes that support longevity. Lifespan has consistently shown improvement in animals that have been subjected to caloric restriction, and while the research is still being done in this area, there is good reason to believe that the results of longevity studies done in animals will translate into increased human lifespan as well, or at least increased health span, as the biochemical mechanisms around fasting tend to be well conserved over the course of evolution and across taxa. Although we do already have a great example in humans thanks to the population of Okinawa, an island of Japan, where the residents observe a regimen of intermittent fasting combined with a diet of calorie-poor but nutrient-rich foods, including Okinawan sweet potatoes and other vegetables and legumes. The Okinawan community also shows very low rates of cardiovascular disease, obesity, and diabetes mellitus, as well as extreme longevity with the highest rates of centenarians anywhere on Earth. Now, everything we've discussed so far seems quite supportive of the value of intermittent fasting, but there are some cautions to take note of. This eating pattern may not be for everyone. Anyone considering this approach should consult with their attending healthcare professional first, but especially if you fall into one of these categories. If you are already underweight, or if you are on medication, especially if it is for diabetes, or if you have other problems with blood sugar regulation, such as being prone to hypoglycemia, or if you have a history of eating disorders such as anorexia or bulimia, or if you're a woman trying to conceive, or if you're a woman with a history of amenorrhea, or if you're pregnant or breastfeeding. The main side effect of intermittent fasting you're likely to experience is simply feeling a bit hungry. In the beginning, you may also experience some weakness, irritability, and some trouble with concentration. However, these initial side effects are usually temporary and will pass just as soon as your body adapts to the new eating schedule, usually within a month or so. But with all those cautions and caveats pointed out, intermittent fasting nonetheless has an excellent safety profile overall. There is nothing particularly dangerous about regularly fasting for periods so long as you are healthy and well-nourished overall. Despite all the benefits we've covered so far, the initial side effects can be a bit of a hurdle for many people. And so, just be mentally prepared to brace yourself for a month or so of minor discomfort as you adapt to the new lifestyle. But then there is always the peer pressure that comes from an ingrained mainstream culture that promotes the 3 meals per day plus snacking lifestyle. But if you consider yourself up to the initial challenge, you can look forward to a simpler, more economical lifestyle as well as improved energy, vitality, and reduced susceptibility to chronic disease going into the future. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this content and would like to see more, then I encourage you to like and subscribe and make sure to hit that bell button as well. And I will be back with another video very soon. Have a good day.